Hello, everyone.
Yo,
Hi,
I,
Rich.
I have to say, Philip, I gotta say, I love that introduction, dude. I
Yeah,
love it.
thanks.
I love it.
Uh,
It's really, really good. I like it. Everything is just bang. I love it. What's
yeah,
going on?
hope everyone loves it. It's me, Philipp Druzhinin, and Richard Lopez. Rich, where you? I see you're not at home because nothing's bubbling today. No fish tank.
It actually is. Actually, it's still bubbling. It's on the other side of the room, though. It's definitely.
Okay. I just thought you got some secret room for chat.
Or I could be using green screen, but I don't have the green screen up yet, though. I got to put that up.
Yeah. Hope you can film landing to Mars next time.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it, like putting myself in the ISS and the fake ISS up there. Kind of like, I mean, they're
Yeah.
fake too, so I might as well, I mean, everybody's doing it, so I might as well do it too.
Yeah, people, we don't want to waste any time today, so
Yeah.
just I'll play a couple of clips. Officials, I don't know who actually did it, but I suppose I'll just put you a screen share to show you where I got that clip after we watch it. So let's just watch the clip first, and it's 12 minutes around that. So I hope you just tell me if you don't hear any sound, right?
All over the world, people are starting to get excited about a theory concerning buried buildings. The theory is that at some point in human history, probably 200 or 300 years ago, there was an enormous global disaster that partially buried buildings in great cities around the world. But we're never told about it, and it's effectively been erased from history. Does that sound crazy to you? We imagine it probably does. But then we invite you to look a little deeper. There's evidence of buried buildings not only in Russia, but in many famous cities around the world. And the official explanation as to why they look the way they do leaves a lot to be desired. It's said the theory began in Russia, and it's easy to see why. Moscow has more buried buildings that appear to have been buried than perhaps anywhere else on Earth. You can even see it at the Kremlin, where the walls of the original building appear to be positioned below the newer one, propping it up. Why is the old building so far below the new one? There hasn't been so much change in the level of the land in the past few centuries, or at least not that we know about. Reconstruction work at the Moscow Polytechnic Museum also brought some interesting footage to light. With the building built on the side of a hill, why does it appear that parts of it appear to be as far as 16 feet below the ground? Subsidence is an issue in Moscow, but not to this extent. You would need a large ladder to gain access to the current front door of some of these properties from the original door, which is so much further below them. Then, we have to talk about the networks of underground tunnels and buildings, too. The official explanation is that these are sewers, but sewers were never known to have been constructed in such a way at the time we're told they were built. These passageways are allegedly from the 16th century. If that's true, then how were they constructed? How could this have been made by teams of men using pickaxes with equipment dragged by a horse and cart? Moving on from Russia for a moment, we can see evidence of similar happenings in Rome, the capital of Italy. This is early footage of excavation work taking place in and around Rome early in the 20th century. In some scenes, even the world-famous Colosseum is being dug out of a thick layer of mud and filth. If work on this scale was required to dig these buildings out, then what could have put so much mud and detritus there in the first place? We'll move on to theories in a moment, but consider it yourself for a moment. You would need to bring mud in by the truckload to create this kind of a problem, and the people of the time didn't have trucks to move it with. Also, the Colosseum is one of the most historically significant and beloved pieces of architecture anywhere in the world. The Italians would never leave it so long without maintenance work that huge chunks of it were disappearing below the surface. That wouldn't make any sense. So what's really going on in these pictures? If Russia and Italy isn't proof enough for you, then consider the fact that we also seem to have had builders tasked with digging out buildings in Paris, France, too. The picture you're seeing here is from 1974, taken when Forum Les Halles was being built on the site of the older Les Halles building. Look how far below the surface of the road the building goes. Of course, a large building needs strong foundations, but this is extreme. The depth is more than 50 feet. If you want a sense of scale, the building you can see in scaffolding to the right-hand side is the Fontaine des Innocents. This particular pit was open for several years. The old Les Halles was demolished in 1971, giving everyone a good view of this apparently forgotten world beneath the surface. Apparently, nobody thought to ask why we now live so much higher in the air than the original street level. This isn't just a small difference of a few feet. With the exception of the Eiffel Tower, you could fit all of the current top layer of Paris into the chasm of older buildings, which apparently exists below it. Look at this underground cavern in Prague. Now it's a tourist hotspot, and a great place to come and take a few pictures. Does it really look like it was originally built to be underground to you, though? Consider the archways and the structure of the ceilings. Underground tunnels don't need such elaborate designs. It's likely that this entire floor of the building was once at street level, but over time a whole extra layer of Prague has been placed on top of it, turning it into a dungeon. We said the problem was worldwide, not just European, and we meant it. Consider any image or video taken of a picturesque holiday location in Egypt now, and then compare it to footage taken 100 years ago or more. Look at the level of the sand around the pyramids and the Sphinx. It's moved significantly. Yes, sandstorms in the desert are an issue, but not to the point where famous buildings should be drowning in it. Hopefully by now you can see the pattern. No matter where we look, we find old buildings where the original structure appears to disappear well below the level of the land. Again, we are not talking about the foundations here. Every building has them. We are talking about instances such as this, where there are clearly areas of building below ground that used to be doors and windows. Windows would not have been opened out into the underground, and these old bricked-up doorways were surely once at ground level. How can the ground level of any city have changed to such a degree that the ground level is now 10 or 20 feet higher than it used to be? Well, let's look at some possible explanations. First, there is the question of something historians call the cultural layer. This is a layer of dirt, grime, dust, and mud built up by human habitation over a period of many years. The busier an area is, the more the cultural layer will build up. The majority of historians feel that this is the most likely explanation for street levels seemingly rising so much over comparatively short periods of time, and would also explain why the problem seems to be at its worst in major cities. After all, that's where most of the people are. So that's where the cultural layer would build up the most. The issue with this is that people clean streets. We may now be more attentive with keeping our streets and roads tidy than we were in the past, but it seems unlikely that anyone would allow so much filth to build up outside their front door that they could no longer open it. Think about it. If your building was being buried, would you go outside and clean away all the dirt? Or would you just accept it and move your front door to the next floor up? We can accept the idea that perhaps a cultural layer of 1 or 2 feet may build up over a century or two, but any more than that seems very unlikely. Another popular theory is that enormous dust storms could have blown through our cities and buried everything they found under waves of dust and mud that came along with the storm. This may have more credence to it. We can see in footage from the United States of America that a dust storm can do more damage than people probably imagine. Look at these classic cars almost completely buried under debris after just one dust storm. With a few such storms over a short period of time, we can imagine that the lower floor of a building might be completely buried. A few centuries ago, cities didn't have as many trees in them as they do now. They were also often surrounded by large, undeveloped areas of flat grassland, where a dust storm could gather pace and mass. Without anything to interrupt the flow of a dust storm, they could be truly devastating. It's even possible that this is the natural way cities have built up over time. We have heard from Canadian historians who say that their major cities are built on top of old cities, which are now 10 feet below the ground. The same is true of Edinburgh in Scotland, where tourists are charged for admission to go and walk around the old underground city. It was thought to be easier to build on the site of an existing building because the old building already had foundations which could support the further weight. As the new building was built, the old one would subside into the ground. Sometimes city planners just got it wrong. The original location of buildings and roads was too low to avoid the risk of flooding, and so it was necessary to build higher in order to improve safety. The roads were relayered, the buildings grew, and the old structures below them were forgotten about. Conquest and war have a tale to tell here too. In times of antiquity, a conquering army would often build their temples and monuments on the shattered remains of what came before them. Consider the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which contains parts of the old Temple of Solomon, and is even built on top of its old walls and foundations. During Bolshevik times in Russia, when religious buildings were torn down, the foundations and lower floors of those buildings were often used to support the new structures which were erected in their place. Paris, Moscow, and the other cities we've looked at were not experiencing times of war. But who's to say they didn't remember these wartime methods when carrying out building work? Perhaps they no longer liked the condition or architectural style of the buildings that existed before, and decided it was easier to build on top of them than knock them down. There are, of course, more fanciful ideas. Some people like to believe that an asteroid or meteorite struck the Earth and caused an enormous dust cloud that swamped half of the Earth some 300 years ago. The people of the time may not have understood what had happened and simply assumed there had been an enormous dust storm. They rebuilt their cities on top of what had been lost and carried on with their lives. Another possibility, a supervolcano, like the one under Yellowstone Park in America, erupted and sent catastrophic amounts of volcanic ash into the atmosphere. That, too, could have fallen like a dust cloud and buried much of what was beneath it. There would likely have been an enormous loss to human life in such a scenario, though, and so it seems odd that there's no mention of any such event in our history books. Is the speculation off base? Or is there something historians don't want to tell us? We don't have all the answers, and it seems nobody else does either. The cultural layer explanation that historians like to use doesn't seem to fit the bill, but there are also holes in the other theories we've put forward. Has there really been an enormous worldwide disaster in the past few centuries that nobody wants to tell us about? Or would that be one conspiracy theory too far? Perhaps the truth is somewhere in between all of the theories. Or perhaps you have a better idea. Have you seen buried cities in your hometown or city and heard tales of how they came to be? We'd love to hear those tales. Even if you don't have any first-hand experience of buried cities and buildings, we want to know your thoughts. Why are there buried buildings in so many big cities around the world? Leave us your belief down in the comments.
So this is kind of the official attempt to explain what's going on. And so first, I like that they admit the problem, right?
Right.
They had a very long part of explaining the problem,
Right.
and trying to pull the problem to some certain case, like dust ball in the 30s, I think, of the 20th century. So it's like not even 19th century, not even saying a word about 19th century, except that maybe some slight information
So
about.
what was his biggest mistake? Is not asking. Well, if you ask Philipp Druzhinin in Russia, he would tell you that there was a mud flood, right? That was his biggest thing that he didn't do.
Yeah, he wasn't. He used some of the footage I used,
Yeah,
but he wasn't quoting me or interviewing me. Although it's not very hard to contact anyone, right?
right,
Who everybody is available. I
right,
mean, he could have contacted you. Why not? If he didn't want to contact Russian person, he could have
right.
contacted any U.S. person or British person. There's
You're right,
plenty of people who talk about it, and at least make a live conversation or quote
right,
somebody, right?
right. And the
I would say
biggest
that
thing
would be
is,
better to
right,
and more reasonable. I would say.
right. The biggest thing is that, just like you said, they're acknowledging it right now. They're acknowledging that there is a problem. They're acknowledging, like, hey, wait a minute, it's not culture fucking layering. It's earth, it's dirt. It got here. These buildings, these windows, sub-level bricks are not made to go underground. They're made to go above ground. There's a lot of things that people are starting to connect the damn dots. And what it's doing is exposing how fraudulent our history is and what we've been told. I think
And
people are starting to wake up.
he was kind of muddying the water when he was trying to explain it with these dust bowls, because
Yeah,
dust bowls appeared to be in the 30s, and is my theory. I was saying that it is not the dust bowl because we don't see any, mud on the top of
right,
these roofs on the pictures, right?
right,
At least it was cleaned up, or if
right.
it was cleaned up, well, okay,
And dust has nothing to do with it. If you understand this research, dust has anything to do with it.
yeah, dust
Because if you take all the moisture out of mud, it becomes dust. If you
uh,
take all the moisture out of mud, it becomes dust. There's certain
yeah.
places where it collects a certain amount of water, and we know everything is chemistry, right? So dust, and because the wind and the currents, because of toroidal fields, right, you're going to get some areas where you're going to get some dust storms. That's just picking up the small particulates and small things in the air.
I think the Dust Bowl, yeah, I think the
Right,
Dust Bowl is just the aftermath of the event of the mud flood, because
yeah,
the terrain that was filled with green grass, trees, and stuff like this was flooded, for
right,
example, it becomes like I don't know, like a
right,
desert, right? So it can be
right,
dried out, and of course it can be blown with the dust, and all this stuff can be performing as a Dust Bowl. Who
right,
actually knows what's the reason of the Dust Bowl? Is it actually agriculture, or is just dry weather for a certain period of time? Who knows? But it's definitely not the cause of the mud flood, because we see the different composure, because
that's right.
the clay itself is
Yes,
wet, right?
absolutely. Right. We're dealing with when we're talking about mud, right? We're not talking about sand or something. Yeah, when we know over time the moisture goes out and that's what you're left with. What he did acknowledge, though, that I did like was the lack of trees back in, you see the lack of trees. And you know what that means is that something recent happened where it turned the trees upside down and the trees got buried. And that's what happened. Everything, when you get that kind of mud flood all over the place, because it's overwhelming evidence we know now around the world of this displacement of mud. So it's just like now, you got these mud floods, you got these trees that are now, you get a mud flood, these trees are going to snap, and there you go. You're going to start all over because everything is buried under new layers of mud.
Yeah, but the good idea is he
Right?
admitted
Yes.
that we don't have, if from all this explanation that he mentioned, all of them have some certain holes in them, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
cannot be proven the event itself. So, and he's also mentioned that we don't have any record, right? So if it was some natural event, we would sure have some records, right? So if
Right.
it wasn't
Well,
natural, then it was intentional
right.
or artificial. or created by somebody. Like I
And
was
first, you would
saying,
have to believe that the history that he showed us with the pictures in those times was actually right anyway. He was like, oh, people didn't, he was just making a whole bunch of assumptions that the history we've been taught was right. But then the question, he's questioning the official narrative at the same time. But that's what these people do is, these people are master of disinformation and misinformation campaigns. That's what they do.
yeah,
They
this is replacement information, replacement of the possibility of somebody finding the real information, because he will find replacement information, will be satisfied.
Right.
So there is a problem, we admit the problem, but we have some explanations and blah 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 blah.
Right. And if he was doing real research, he would have mentioned that there is a theory going on, at least mention the theory of mud flood if he did any kind of research, because
he would say about Tartaria.
He would say about Tartaria, exactly. And they're not doing it. This is their way of just muddying the waters, like we say, disinformation, getting people kind of, there's another explanation. There was dust storms and shit. That's how all of this shit got all over the place. It was dust storms. And and they forgot to write about it in the official record or everything. Okay, whatever. So
probably a lot of people probably died, but we still would have some records. And other explanation, he just put the line between. He said, like, write us an explanation in the comments. So he wanted the people to write him an explanation instead of Googling him himself and finding the decent, respected authors explaining it actually, like with the mining theory or whatever, right? So you can do it. Okay, the next video clip. Let's see.
Pretty joke, man.
Move this one. Stop screen share. And the next one.
Hello, everyone in the chat. Hello, everyone that's watching. My apologies.
It doesn't have any narration. This is Naples city in Italy, and this is 40-meter underground tunnel network, which is called Bourbon Tunnel. These are videos from presentation. So people arrive to the presentation. And this is the way it looks like. So official theory is that some Bourbon dynasty person, Ferdinand, created his passageway from his castle so he can escape if somebody can, make a revolution, right? But right now the entrance is located in just an ordinary construction, ordinary building. It's not even from the castle. It has a parking available, multi-level surveillance cameras, everything. So just, it's a commercial place, and right now they're using it to attract tourists, to do presentations, whatever, parties. I believe even Masons use it for their meetings, because it's just a whole bunch of tunnels there, and not all of them are actually open to the public. So very interesting place, I would say. So it has elevator, so you can don't use it.
Oh yeah, we got underground malls and shit. Absolutely.
Yeah, so a lot of brick stuff. So it was abandoned since the end of the Second World War, and found again in our time. So abandoned for like 60 years.
What do people forget that it was there? How do people forget? No, if something happened, something worldwide happened where a lot of people got displaced and killed, and people forgot the knowledge. People forgot the real sciences. People forgot the real history. These parasites came over and took over everything. Look how big those archways was. It was like made by giants.
Yeah,
giant human beings.
Just for a monarch to escape, you don't have to use such scale for single person to escape. you can use this narrow tunnel, very efficient,
Right.
right?
Not
You don't
these
have to
big
do
ass
such.
objects. Right. For giant human beings. The evidence is all over. You go to Rome, it's all giants. It's
Yeah,
built
look
by
look at
giants.
those arches. Just
Right.
I think
Yeah.
they were probably digging this tunnel
Yeah.
for this person,
Tartarian brick too. Yeah.
but they found all these antiquities underground and were just astonished and connected them together, I think, because Nazis used them. Look at this machinery. It's from the
Yeah.
Nazi time, from the World War
Wow.
II time. It's all there.
Look at that. Look at that. And they were hiding this place out. And look what they found though. And the Nazis, they didn't build that. That's what they found it and kept it and like, oh shit, this is here. You know? Yeah, man.
So they used it as a base, as a bomb,
Absolutely.
bomb shelter.
Look at that. Or maybe a training facility or whatever. Or storage place. I mean, whatever. They turned it into,
Look at the scale, man.
Look at the scale of that. Those big human beings, man. Come on, man. It's a done deal. Right. Yep. Look at that. Just like locked in time. Yep. And then they're just, objects in two different times. Look at that. It's just amazing.
So right now they're making money of it. Not only CIA uses tunnels, commercial structures also do.
Oh, they got bunkers. They got all kinds of shit down there underground, man. You got to remember when we were a kid, they said that it was multi.
That's another place. It's in Russia. I edited to this clip. Look at this. Inside of the building, there's actually below the ground. And those people doing renovation here. All those windows, arches. It's all below the ground. It's like pretty deep one.
Wow.
So I don't know, why didn't he mention 19th century at all? So maybe even, if you watch us, whoever made this video from History Channel, you should, dig a little deeper and talk to people who actually know the subject, not, speculate it. Look how deep it is.
Right. And they say, and they gauge, they have like these algorithms, and they gauge when people are waking up to certain topics like flat earth and Tartaria and mud floods. They start people waking up, and then that's when they hit you with the disinformation campaign, misinformation campaign. I mean, look what we're looking at now. You got people, they're doing anal swabs out here, Philip. Anal swab, right? And people are doing it. Like, I mean, they telling people not only to wear one mask, but 2 masks and 3 masks right now. And you got people that are actually doing it. And it's just, it's so crazy, but it's like, hey, man. And you got people.
Those recent times. Look at the pool, man. They have a pool in those tunnels, man.
Look at that's pretty. That's pretty too. With the whole lighting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Look at the size. Look at that.
They have a pool, man.
Hey, that is a pool.
Yeah. In those tunnels, I've been showing it right now.
Wow.
So only Reset can explain it, man. Okay.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, let's see if people in the chat have some questions.
Yep.
What about scale and who really built metro in Moscow and St. Petersburg? We can only guess who built those tunnels, but the way the construction was going on, and officials say that they built it in like 7 years, first 2 lines without any equipment for 3 years. They were digging it with the shovels, and only then the tunnel diggers from mining industry came. So I don't know if actual engineers from mining can do the subway construction in 4 years for several, like 10 kilometers line. 2 lines were created. I don't know. This unexplainable. So probably the tunnels were made there before, and what those people were doing, they were just excavating the tunnels and using them for the further construction. Maybe it was something like pneumatic system, because the tunnels kind of look this way. possibly used for pneumatic systems. But maybe it was just the same railway system like we have right now. Who actually knows? But those speculations that people like to promote right now, saying that all this stuff is just perfectly excavated and looked exactly this way,
Right.
doesn't have any
Right.
proof actual, because
No.
we don't have any photos of that at least. But the subway itself in Moscow is a very secret place, and probably you won't find any evidence to support this or that, against or for this theory. So only speculations and lack of information about the early stages of construction.
Right. And then they did it that way on purpose. But if you're open-minded and you see the level of deception that we're dealing with, and actually know that what they're doing is his story, and see all the lies, and you see, hey, they didn't teach us none of this. I don't even think a lot of people knew of this stuff themselves. It was only certain people that knew about these mud floods and certain people, and then they hide it from the public for a reason. Of course, they're not going to tell you once they found out about what happened. They're going to tell people because they want you to believe their history. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit for them. It goes against what they're trying to do to keep you informed. That would go everything. That would go totally against what they're trying to do by telling us the truth of what happened back then. It doesn't benefit them. It's not in their best interest to tell us the truth about none of this shit.
The link to the video, guys, I don't have the official link. I found it on Facebook. I'll put it in the description, but I don't know if you can possibly view it because it's on Facebook, and I'm not really sure. It's gonna be in the description, and Richard's channel link also is in the description. Okay. Once the video is done, you probably see that link. Okay, so Nostro de Broma also here, Spanish-speaking channels. If you speak in Spanish, subscribe to them. Very good one.
People are waking up, man.
I see Baked and Wake is here.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for joining. We wanted to have a short conversation about all this information that's popped up in this video, and also he's explaining that somebody would build something on top of the older construction.
Right.
It depends on the condition of construction, first of all, right? It depends on the soil, and if that construction already cracked and something is not supporting very well, it can be used as a foundation, guys.
Absolutely.
Heavy construction, that is about it.
It would make sense.
He didn't even contact any construction worker to consult him on this, because you have to reinforce it very well. You have to put all these rebars there. We don't find any rebars there. So if they even used it, why didn't they reinforce it? If they didn't reinforce it, then it was in perfect condition. If it was in perfect condition, then it wasn't destroyed. If it wasn't destroyed, then there's no explanation why not just excavate the area and use the building. No, they didn't excavate the area, and they used the building as a foundation, is what they say. This is merry-go-round explanation, which is encircled in nonsense, because you cannot use something that is old or destroyed or burned, as they say, like after the war somebody came and built something on top. And put an example of Jerusalem case. Actually, there is a huge Solomon temple underneath with those huge blocks. Look like
by giants, absolutely.
Giant scale blocks.
Absolutely.
Of course, you can use it as a foundation, but try to use something destroyed, is what he said. I'm not sure you're gonna succeed in that construction. And ask any construction worker, if you use something, you reinforce it. You reinforce it with concrete, you reinforce it with rebars and all these.
But we do see in some places, that's why that where they didn't have that kind of technology. They just used hammer and nails, and we see that they build it on top of these roofs now and just built up brick. They did that, but that's not the reason why they did it. What they're not addressing is why was the roof underground in the first place? I don't care how much culture laying where people didn't sweep and take care of themselves. He was like leading towards that answer, but then he stopped right there. He's like, well, then, yeah, okay, well, yeah, people wasn't sweeping the streets, but wait a minute, where did all of this? Where does it say in the official narrative that we taught all of this mud came from somewhere and these buildings got buried? Right? You don't see it because they hid it.
No, he's not even touching the topic that mud could have came from underground, right?
Right.
He's touching only that something fell from above or came with the wave or something like flooding or flash flood, which it cannot be explained. If that was a seawater, then every brick construction will have those salt, evidence of salt water, and all these, we wouldn't see any clay. We would see sand and the sea, little little animals from the sea. I don't know how do you call it. So all this life biology from the sea, we would actually visualize it in this clay, but no. We don't see any sand. We don't see any, mollusks or anything. No octopuses there. No, no fish.
That's what happens if you take some dirt and you keep pouring, and you have a strainer. You put dirt on a strainer, and guess what happens if you keep pouring water on top of it? Right, all the nutrients, all the dirt will go through and will rinse out onto the ground, and what will be left would be sand. These little pebbles of rocks that makes up part of the soil. And that's what we're talking about. So, but clearly what they were talking about was definitely misinformation. And like I said, his biggest mistake was not asking you, what was your theory? At least they should have presented it as a theory, but they didn't. So,
yeah, I've been picturing and filming the trees that are falling in my area, and I see a thick layer of mud beneath them. So it's not original soil that those trees are supposed to have been, actually living on before. I don't think so, because the upper layer is muddy layer. So we don't see a bunch of trees around the cities. That's a good question actually in the chat. And why is that? Because probably all those trees were buried with the mud, maybe even collapsed and buried with the mud. So because the tree cannot survive if it's flooded for a very long time, especially with the clay, because the trees will be rusted, not oxidizing, but petrifying. I don't know, everything that is stuck in the mud starts to die and petrify.
You know what I tell
any oxygen in.
You know what I tell people, Philip? Say, you know what? I wasn't there. I really don't know what the fuck happened. But here's what this is what I can tell you is what they said is not what happened. What their explanations to what we see with the evidence that we're looking at with our own eyes, it's not what happened.
Yeah, Bacon Awake, nice comment. Let's start interviewing pipe fitters, plumbers, telco line workers, etc., and ask them what's the strangest thing they've seen on the job out there. Yeah, why don't you? I've seen John Levy interviewing somebody who is supposed to be a construction worker near the place that he was filming, with some mud flood evidence also near Salt Lake. And so that is good when you can contact the person, like I've shown in a previous clip, when you go ahead and step in and talk to somebody, step down, take a look what is inside, what is on the level below, and so on. So I like the beard, Rich.
You like it?
Jerry Griffin said.
Jerry, hey, what's going on, Jerry?
Yeah, Jerry, hi.
My main man, what's going on?
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us today. We had a short one. And
I want to show you. Can I show you a picture real quick? Let me show you something real quick.
Yeah, of course you can, but I've heard you haven't prepared anything.
No, I got a picture I want to show you. I want to show you a place that's close to where I live at. I want to show you something. I want people to put their thinking caps on real quick.
Sinkholes are popping up again all over the world just because everything is buried and it has bubbles inside. So of course it's going to be collapsing, and the sinkholes appear everywhere in the cities and in the country.
Can you see what I'm seeing?
Yep.
Now I want you to put your thinking cap on. Okay? When I'm talking about there's mud flood evidence all over the world, it's all over the world. This is actually a firehouse right now, and it used to be a firehouse, Tartarian brick, right? And look, there's no trees in the back. It's all flat plain, right? Nothing but mud all over the place. And to this day, now what they did was they extended it and made an addition, and it's different now. But this is the original building, and it's halfway under mud. You can literally see the sub-level windows right here. You see that?
Yep.
You know, even around the houses around this area. And you see the old train track, and you see how like there's wood on top of this mud. So
yep. Some type of pavement.
Right. And exactly. This is wood, right? And this is all mud. Like, and this whole area is all full with mud. It's overwhelming evidence of this mud flood. So
yeah, each and every building is supposed to be checked. And so on. So, I mean, he was mentioned in Prague after Paris, and the Paris evidence itself is very questionable because, you know, he's showing the wrong evidence actually and saying wrong things. But anyway, let's just leave it an official mainstream film, so we cannot be, you know, very critical to him. Right. So, okay. Anyways, he was mentioned in Prague, but he didn't say that Prague was buried in a couple of weeks or days. So, official explanation says that overnight Prague was buried. So, like they brought so many soil inside and buried all those levels overnight. So each night they did it, and eventually we see that all those facilities right now are underground. So, and you can go visit them as a tourist site right now. So very interesting. So the best explanation or the best evidence is when you see the doors are used a different way that they used to be before. Like he was saying actually that you cannot use the previous original door. And this is what you have to show when you try to prove this or that building actually belonged to the mud flood theory. Because you have to show us the door that is right now on the ground, or you have to show us the door that is right now on the second floor.
Right.
Okay.
No.
That is evidence number one. Evidence number two, you have to step in and check it out from the inside and see if those windows are not just the basement windows, small windows that are created in the basement somewhere. That are going all the way, and the original size of them is huge.
Right.
And it's unexplainable, right?
You know what the elephant in the room is, though, right? You know what the elephant in the room is? The elephant in the room is when you talk about mud flood is where the fuck did all this mud come from?
Yeah.
That's what people can't. You can't even get past the ABC if you can't explain this to me. Where the fuck did all this mud come from?
Yeah, it came from underground, is what I say.
Right.
It came from underground.
The same is like if everybody who tries to deny this or can't see this evidence or can't see that, look, it's not what history is not what they say it is. You got these buildings with these big ass windows. You know, why would someone like me and you get a big ass window if we're not a giant? If we're not 10, 15 feet tall. 10 feet tall.
Another great explanation is also, not only drilling something, like creating the flow from underground after that, or you can also dredge something. Like you
Yes.
can have it like
Yes.
some type of
Right.
pipeline, and you can throw the mud from the top on the streets, and
Hey,
you know
man.
create the flood,
Right.
like a
However, but you
like
guys
filling the pool.
address that it was some type of flood, a mud flood. That's why everything that now how it came, I mean, who knows? But you know, hey, if you can shake this place like I like, hey man, I still hold theory. I hold a lot of plausibility to my theory, and you know what that is. I believe in the existence. Once I found out this place was in some type of container of some sort, and all you got to do is something shakes it. You know, something gets mad or something bigger than this, like, people call God themselves, the Most High Himself. This thing shakes, or somebody used some type of technology inside of this container, and this place shakes like an etching sketch. You know, that can displace a lot of mud in a lot of places all at one time. So, I mean, you got to keep that in mind too.
Most mud flood evidence tends to be near a mountain. Well, that's a flash flood evidence, not the mud flood evidence. You have to understand that the mountain itself is not the mountain, actually. It could be a mining waste pile,
Deposits of mud.
right? Yeah, somebody did that before us,
Right.
and that could not even be a mountain. And you think it's a mountain, but we have a bunch of hills, right?
Right.
What are the hills
But
then?
I know what that person is saying. We do have to address this. Yes, if you live by these big mountains, yes, you can get flooded out from these mountains.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
absolutely, and that is part of what's going on. But we're talking about on a larger scale, like where this mud came from. But like I
Yeah,
said,
we're
who
talking
knows?
about the plains because most of the land is plain, guys. So you
No,
cannot explain the plains with
right,
that.
right, and that's what I said. Flat. It's all flat. You know, once you start realizing what this place is, and you start understanding how this place works, and and the level of deception. I tell people right now, thank God for flat Earth and mud floods. You know why?
Yeah, moving mud flood would have a massive amount of inertia and momentum, of course, guys. That's what I'm saying. That's why this is not a flash flood. It's a flood that is filling the area.
That's
It
a
it
good,
can
that's a
it
good
can
point.
come as an eruption from underneath, like a mud volcano or something.
Could be, could be. We don't know
That's
what they're
why
doing.
that's why people started to explain it with the liquefaction, because they were trying to say that the buildings were sinking, but sinking doesn't work in real life.
That's just
Once
one.
the building sinks,
Right.
it's collapsing. All
That's
the
just
walls
one
are cracking.
explanation for the way mud works. Right. That's not.
Yeah,
We're
so
talking about something on a large scale. Right.
you have to have an earthquake to have a liquefaction first, and so you have to have a record of the earthquake, because if it's not intentional, then you have to have a record of it. You don't have a record of it, so you cannot explain with the earthquake, liquefaction, flash flood, or anything.
That's why I said we don't know, man. I just don't. I mean, we all have only thing we have.
Nor
Is speculation.
nor you cannot explain it with some frequency, as people
Yes.
much believe, like
Right.
vibration.
Right. That's why I explained where all the bells are cracked all over the world is because of there must have been some type of vibration that was so strong that cracked shit.
Yeah.
And if you get a vibration, you're gonna get some type of, and that could display. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Any vibration is an earthquake,
You know,
guys.
I'm
You
still-
have to understand that any vibration will be considered as an earthquake, and it will be on record. So
Absolutely.
any natural cause, like a new Madrid earthquakes that
Right.
we have, like 30 years of earthquakes near
Right.
Mississippi basin. I mean,
Right.
they're recorded, and they are not explaining much.
I know, but they left out a lot of things out of the history book. So, man, we don't know. We can't. Everything's up for debate. Everything's also plausible. We can say, hey, well, nah, that can't be.
Earthquake makes a building to collapse, right?
Yeah,
Makes the walls crack.
is absolutely. But what
Canada
we're talking about is I experienced the earthquake, and the earthquake is not the problem. The problem is the aftershocks. Okay, so once you have an earthquake, you have what's called aftershocks. So you can experience those aftershocks hours after the earthquake. I was in California for the 1993 earthquake, and I was there, and I was in a hotel room, and I was like 2:00 in the morning. Next thing you know, all my books, my bookshelf, and my hotel, the TV, everything started falling down. You know, I was staying at this hotel for a week, and then, you know, I had my stuff. I was traveling. All my shit fell down. And I'm like, oh, shit. I opened up the door, and shit was shaking. I'm like, oh, wow, I never experienced this before. I'm from New York. But the problem was, like, when I was scared shitless. Hours later, we went to Venice Beach, and which was the worst thing we could did, but that's what we did. And we felt the aftershocks. And I'm like, what the fuck is the aftershock? And then that's when hours you feel this, and that's when I experienced it. My own, not what someone said or what the news said. That's what I experienced. So we don't know. That's why I said I don't know. There's a good explanation. It's like your explanations with the mining, that makes fucking sense. It could be.
Yeah. People ask about Sakara in Africa, and yes, the Sakara Desert was likely part of the event. In my opinion, it used to be green with rivers. On the maps, yes, it used to have a lot of cities. It used to have a lot of forests, and we even know that Libya has a lot of underground facilities with these water contained underground. And the Gaddafi was even creating these pipeline to pull all this fresh water and sell it to the regions of Africa. So I mean, before he was assassinated, of course. So we know a bunch of water is underneath, and how come all this water came underneath, right? All these huge amounts of water, fresh water in Africa. Just listen to what I'm saying. Fresh water in Africa, in northern Africa, full of fresh water. A bunch of constructions and all these facilities of ancient, you know, maybe chemical plants, I don't know, mining facilities. All around Africa is just, all of this is just, you know, buried with the sand and mud. So it could be dropped from the Mediterranean Sea while it was mined. Who knows? As a byproduct, they should, you know, move that somewhere. And probably it was used to do that, because we see all these marks of mud moving in North Africa.
It's a good explanation, though. I think this is what I'll tell people. I'll tell you, my mother, anybody else, that maybe that there is a lot of overwhelming evidence of some type of flood, like Noah's flood of some sort. When you look at the Sirius as a star, you look at Sirius, it looks like it's like a star where actually it has an X in it. It looks like a top of the top of this container, where it has like a lid, like when you get out of this portal. It's like a port, right? So maybe there was a goddamn flood, right? Which there's a lot of evidence to suggest that shit was underwater for a short period of time. If you let the water out, you drain it out. I mean somehow, right? If this is a container and you could drain it out, I mean, you got to think about this shit now. I know this shit sounds crazy. Once the water goes back to normal levels, right? Now you have all this wet mud, right? You got these vibrations, right? After all of this flood, because the land is settling and all of this stuff, and you have this big event that happened. You know, you got people displaced, you got everything displaced, you got Rome, the seat of the Vatican, which shows, with the history that we're finding now, shows that these people been in power for a very long time. Babylon shit. Rome, right? So they got messed up. So something happened. And these people that are left over are the survivors, and that's why we had these wars that don't make sense. It was the power to take over what was left, and to claim, oh, this is bloodline, this is all this and this, and all this all nonsense. And then people who won these wars, they started taking control, started fabricating these history for these future generations to believe, and now it's all coming to fruition. People starting to wake up, and people see that it's all bullshit, man.
So basically what you're saying is that it was a huge natural event controlled by somebody who is right now in power.
What does natural mean? I mean, think about it. If we live in a container, that means someone built this container. If you're an atheist, and you can't be a flat earther and a goddamn atheist, not a real flat earther, because with your flat earther, you kind of understand, first of all, you understand the deception, and you understand that something built this place, that same thing that's probably and most likely created you.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you think about it, everything that's here is made for us. But you got these people that's before us, that set up shop before us, that we came here, right? And they still running these goddamn bullshit satanic nonsense that's going on. These psychopaths that are in control, that are controlling everything, feeding us. And now we're starting to wake up, figuring out if we're on a cat or dog. It's like a flea. Want to know if they're on a dog or a cat. And it got us arguing about dumb shit. And and now they got this big, massive sacrifice thing going on. People going to take the goddamn jab. You're a dumbass. If you take the jab, go ahead, take it. We need more parking spots. Go ahead, take it. I'm tired of telling you don't fucking take it. Yeah, go ahead, take it. We need more parking. You don't understand what's going on?
Don't even forget about Barbaria. The northern parts of Africa was named Barbaria on most of the medieval maps, which is probably the huge civilization, this Moorish civilization that was existing and was conquering up to northern Spain and probably up to Turkey. So we have to understand that a bunch of civilization passed in a way that we don't even know how, but they are just ignored by official science.
Absolutely. And why we don't know this, and why that our families don't know is why their families don't. Because there was been a big gap. Something happened that broke the chain. Something happened. There was a reset of some sort that happened where we can't explain. We know it happened, but we can't explain how it happened.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like we can't explain it. Right. We can't explain how it happened. If you ask your mom,
we have to admit that we have to explain it.
Huh?
We have to admit that we have to explain it, because if not us, then who?
Well, I think that we can give our opinion about what's going on, but I think we have to let people come to their own determination. I think that's the fair thing to do it. I think that's what we done. Their excuses why you don't tell the people the truth. Well, if you tell people the truth, they'll fuck them up. Well, they need to get fucked up.
Cognitive dissonance.
It would stop everything. If people knew the truth, it would shut everything down. Well, maybe they didn't need to shut everything down. Maybe it does need a reset, because people need to hear the truth and let people handle the truth, no matter what it is. And that's these are psychopaths that make these decisions for us. And they want to think for us, and they want to make these decisions what to tell us and what not to tell us. And that's bullshit. That's deception.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, man.
Yeah, man, and that's what it is. I think we give it to us and let us decipher it. Let us deal, and let us see fit. But they don't want. They want to keep their control. If people knew the truth, these technocrats and all these people in charge, they won't have control anymore. And that's why they don't want to give you the truth. And that's why they give you misinformation, disinformation. And look, you ever heard of the mushroom theory, Philip? The mushroom theory, this is how they're treating us. The mushroom theory is to grow mushrooms, you have to keep them in the dark. You feed them a bunch of shit. When their heads get too big, you chop them off. Right? That's what's going on, right? We're batteries, right? We're energy, right? Once our heads we're getting too big, we know too much. Now it's time to take the motherfucking shot so we can fucking remote control you later on and control your life and see what you're doing. Right? We're gonna link you up to the fucking cloud, and you're not knowing because you're a dumbass. You're a monkey who's spinning around on a spinning ball in outer space, and you believe in all bunch of fucking bullshit. And every year, your kids, fucking Santa Claus gave you fucking gifts.
Exactly.
Right. Wake the fuck up. It's time to wake up, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everybody in the chat. A bunch of active people here and a bunch of celebrities, I would say, also came around. So thanks a lot, everybody, and see you later. Next video is going to be about 1971. What the hell happened in 1971? Because everybody wants to know it, and I'm going to tell you that. See you later. Bye.
Bye.